weeks there was the announcement that there would be a debate in South Carolina. And at first they said you did not have to be an officially announced candidate to attend that debate. And the potential candidates have been slow in announcing this year. But then at the last minute, they did decide that you don't have to be an announced candidate, but you have to have at least an exploratory committee. And those type of things help you make the decision if you're not quite ready to make the decision. If you think it would be an advantage to attend the debates, then you go ahead and establish a exploratory committee. But I think it will be the continuation of the evaluation of the support, and part of the answer I gave earlier has to do with looking for that and seeing it. And I do see a lot of support. But sometimes you get a lot of support from very vocal supporters, and you don't know whether they're fooling you or not. Not that they're fooling me intentionally, but how many people there really are. And I think that's a full evaluation. But there's a lot more to it. You know, are you able to raise the necessary funds and get the volunteers together? And so it's a continuing evaluation. But I do intend to make a firm decision in the not too distant future. I would be very surprised if I don't make that decision to go one way or the other in the month of May.
Why is Ron Paul not Rand Paul?
You'll have to ask Rand Paul what he's up to.
He's waiting for you.
Well, I'll have to talk to him about that.
How about a Paul ticket?
Well, people have mentioned that it would be a bit unusual.
Barack Obama had a decent chunk of the youth vote in 2008. Based on what you've seen so far, do you think you'll take the youth vote, or will Mr. Obama?
Are you talking about the youth vote?
The youth vote.
Yeah, the question about the youth vote. You know, that is fascinating because in the last campaign, it was very obvious that young people were attracted to the message I was delivering. And rightfully so, they should be, because as far as I'm concerned, they're getting dumped on. A lot of problems. They're expected to pay a lot of taxes and not get a lot of remuneration backs, and difficulty getting jobs. And when this is explained to college kids especially, the response is very, very favorable. And in the last campaign, the truth is that other Republican candidates did not have the same attraction to the young people. It was more or less like, well, they weren't that important. And a lot of them went to Obama, which sort of was pretty strange to me, because our views were quite different. But then if you listen carefully, there were some things that Obama was saying that young people were interested in, like we really want to have change and have a different system and have some reforms, and even as was once promised, a more humble foreign policy. So that was more or less promised again. So many of them responded. But I think there's a lot of disenchantment there right now, to tell you the truth. And I just don't think that the massive young people who young people generally lead a revolution. And I see what we have been trying to do for the last 5 years or more as an intellectual revolution, a change in ideas on foreign policy, a change in idea on monetary policy, a change in attitude about the entitlement system, and a change in an attitude about protecting personal liberties. And to me, it's a change in these ideas, and it is intellectual. I believe politicians so often reflect an intellectual climate, and that's where we're seeing tremendous interest in what we're doing. I think that Obama will not be able to hang on to that enthusiasm of the young people because of what's been happening in the last couple of years.
Ron, quick question for you on the Fed policy. If you were to become president,
Pardon me?
Fed policy question for you. What is your thoughts on Fed policy and the risk of inflation?
When will?
What's your thoughts on the current Fed policy in terms of inflation?
I'm not getting this.
He's asking just your thoughts on Fed policy.
Just thoughts on Fed policy.
Yeah, inflation specifically.
Oh, okay. Well, that question's down my alley, to say the least. at least since tomorrow, there's going to be a major change in the way our foreign policy is being monitored in this country, is that there will be a first press conference by the Federal Reserve Board chairman. And this is significant because that is a reflection of a grassroots movement that pushed the Congress into trying to find out more about what the Fed is doing and what they did do in the bailout. And we're finding astounding things. So the monetary policy is, to me, a very, very significant issue, because if you want to curtail spending, and it seems like everybody's talking about it, but I don't know how sincere they are, but if you want to do that, you can't do it without addressing the inflationary system, because Congress does not have to act responsibly if they can run up a debt, they can tax to an extent, borrow to an extent, and they still don't have enough money in Washington, so they've resorted to printing up money. Then they get into trouble, and then they massively print up money. And what has happened in these last couple years? They did exactly what they perpetuated the same policies that gave us our crisis. And it was too much spending and borrowing and inflating and regulating. But the inflationary problems, the creation of new money is historic. World history has never seen the monetary inflation that we have seen in the last couple of years. Trillions of dollars unmonitored by the Congress. And guess what that inevitably leads to? Higher prices. Higher prices will be the key issue in the next year's election, because people already know that prices are going up. And to some who might make profit, they might not think it's a bad deal. But when it's the American consumer who suffers because their standard of living goes down, their cost of living goes up, and they don't have jobs, and then they see interest rates cropping up, this is a big deal, and it is related to the Federal Reserve System. The problems that we're seeing around the world today are related to the fact that all countries are suffering the same problem, because this phenomenon is worldwide. We issue the world currency, the reserve currency of the world. That gives us the privilege of exporting our money and, unfortunately, our jobs and our businesses. And the countries that you see rioting going on right now, you hear all sorts of explanation. But most of those places where they're rioting, they're upset about the cost of food. And this is what it comes to. And one day there's going to be a lot of unrest in this country because the cost of living is going up, and the only thing left for Bernanke is to print more money, and it makes the problem that much worse. So monetary policy is key, and we have to address it. And I believe that is going to be my last question, and I thank you for coming.
We have a flyer out on the table that will give you a few more points and talking points and coverage of where the candidate stands, potential candidate, if you will. So please avail yourself of this flyer outside as you leave. Thank you all for coming. Appreciate it very much.